this life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.
This is a really simple one to state, Brian Campbell. Your main event, an interim lightweight title shot between Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Let's start with you, good sir. As you have rolled out the punchlines early, you seem fired up for today's program, as you always are. Who wins? Who wins the main event on Saturday, and why?
I love this question. Why do I love this question? Because Morning Comment's back in the groove that it should be. We're not talking about COVID. We're not talking about should they or shouldn't they. We're not even talking about Khabib and the whole situation with the lightweight title picture. How about we even put the interim aside for a second and just focus on the fact that this is a bad-ass fight, a fight of the year contender before it even happens. And one of those where, we broke down Corrales-Castillo a couple weeks ago on the, celebrating the anniversary. This could really be one of those special ones. But who wins? So many unknown questions, of course, Luke, about how this quarantine time will affect strategy, stamina, and really centered on Tony Ferguson, how the whole idea of taking one more big-time chance before he finally gets that title shot against Khabib, will he end up shooting himself in the foot? Will he end up playing himself, DJ Khaled, from just taking too many chances? All of that is legit. There's a wild card factor for sure that we just don't know what this fight is going to look like given COVID and all that. But at the end of the day, Tony Ferguson's a better fighter than Justin Gaethje. And I think we're going to see great action, great violence. But Justin Gaethje's 3-fight sort of evolution lately, which gave him 3 first-round knockouts and put him into legit title contention, he was a front runner in those moments. And that's not a criticism. He went out there, showed more technique than he normally does, and took people out. But Tony Ferguson is an A-plus fighter riding a 12-fight win streak. And I think this is the kind of matchup that is going to bring out the Justin Gaethje of old once Tony starts feeling those strikes, taking them in, and welcoming Justin into those deep waters. And Luke, when we have seen Gaethje go in there against the elites who have that big-time backbone, the Eddie Alvarez's, the Dustin Poiriers, you can finish this guy. So while certainly we're going to be looking to see where the stamina plays into the factor of both, I think once this fight starts to go on the ground, specifically around that 3rd round, I like Tony Ferguson's chances of getting a finish big time. And he's 36. That window's closing. I think he gets to that Khabib fight finally. Cosmic or not, the craziness or not, I like Tony Ferguson here. And I kind of like him convincing once he gets through the fire.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just say this as you hear my dogs angrily barking. I'll say this. I think your analysis is basically on point. Look, go back to the Lando Venata fight, which was not the fight he was supposed to have. Remember, Lando Venata was a last-minute replacement, and then he comes in there and he kind of gave Tony the business a little bit early, but I'm using that one as a metaphor because, one, Tony, won that fight, and two, the other interesting aspect to all of this is, in winning that fight, what did you notice about it? What did you notice in the Kevin Lee fight or any fight where someone kind of rocked him or put it on him a little bit, maybe even the Anthony Pettis fight? The answer is they may have been able to land, but they couldn't sustain any effort on him. He is defensively vulnerable, but he's not defensively incapacitated ever. He has offense from virtually every position, off of his back, from turtle, standing, hitting Granby rolls, and then he's launching into Darces here, and he's spinning back, elbowing there, and you're up against the fence, and he's this way. He's got offense coming and going, and that has kept him safe for the most part, even when he's been tuned up a little bit in various moments. Still, I agree with you. I think Tony, look, skills win fights, right? So I think Tony deserves to get the nod here. I think the odds makers have that. But we would be in the wrong, Brian Campbell, and you might agree with this as well, if we didn't at least give a little bit of the case for Justin Gaethje here. Number one, while he did say that he would have preferred the fight to be on April 18th because he didn't want to have to peak twice in short order, nevertheless, I think that extra time overall will do him some good, right? It'll give him a little bit more time to come up with a few more pieces of the game plan to figure out exactly what he needs to do to get that right. I kind of like that extra time for him, even if he issued some of those cautions. And by the way, Tony's already cut weight once in a 3-week period. I can't imagine that's great for him if it's not all that bad necessarily. But the bigger part here is, you're right, Justin Gaethje has won the fights you kind of expected him to win, and he's performed ably in all of them. And the other part about the last 3 wins over Vic, over Barboza, and over Cerrone is, you knew he had definitely improved his style. You knew he was better than he was before, but it's not exactly clear how good he was before, right? Which is to say, okay, you beat James Vick in a round, that's great, but what does that tell us? All right, you beat Barboza, but Barboza's been through a lot of wars, what does that tell us? And then Cerrone was coming off that loss to Tony Ferguson himself. So you knew that there was a difference there, you could visibly see it, but it didn't tell you about the upper bound limit. I think this fight will tell us that, and I also think while Tony was able to avoid, again, a sustained effort of attack from other folks, if there is anybody who is capable, at least of the first 15, 16, 17, maybe 18 minutes of doing that, because remember, he got put out at the end of the 3rd round, beginning of the 4th round in the Alvarez and Poirier fights, it's Justin Gaethje. If he rocks you and he knocks you down, he is going to be on you in a vicious and ugly and very quick way. So I think he's a heavy hitter. I think he is great about closing the distance, Brian Campbell. He's very good about weaving his way on the inside. He's a heavy leg kicker. That's going to make a difference to some of the movement to Tony Ferguson. So I agree with you. Tony Ferguson is your deserved favorite here, but, BC, surely you must agree, if there is any, and I do mean any, live dog in this equation, it's Justin Gaethje.
No question about it. We don't want to discount that by any means. It's going to be interesting, though, because should the unique situation of this, let's say both of their stamina is compromised, their focus is a tiny bit compromised, because it's just a weird scenario, going for this interim belt in an empty arena after a long break and all that, I still think it ends up favoring Tony if that happens, because you kind of are who you are when shit hits the fan. And it didn't hit the fan for Justin Gaethje in those 3 fights that we referenced. So when it does, I just think Tony is in a better spot technique-wise, the ability to sustain damage-wise, and having more ways to win when they do match up. I do want to hit one thing, though, for anybody here who's a big Justin Gaethje supporter and going, what about that other part? What about sort of the cosmic karma element? Luke, sorry about that, Jay. Sorry. What about the cosmic element of the idea that how many times can Tony take this gamble before this just becomes overall a bad luck scenario and he never gets to the altar, so to speak?
I don't know. I'm not really thinking about that. Look, it's a very, 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 very fair question. It may be the most important question coming out of the weekend, depending on the results. I don't discount it. But I'm just thinking about the fight itself. I'm thinking about how great it's going to be. The only thing I'm really focused on BC is, let me ask you this. To me, a big consideration here, the longer it goes, the more it favors Tony. I think if Justin's going to win, he's going to win inside 2, 3 at the latest. If we get to championship rounds, I think that's just Tony Ferguson's territory 99 times out of 100. I'm focusing on that, and I'm focusing on the leg kicks and the big power punching. What would you say is the 1 or 2 things that Tony Ferguson has over Justin that he can't make up for?
I think the ability on the ground, and even though Justin has a strong wrestling background, he just doesn't use it in fights. And Tony's ability to wrestle and almost put himself in what would be dangerous situations for others, yet we always talk about his offense on his back, his comfortability there, his ability to pull off submissions. I just think it becomes a bad equation for Justin unless he's in top position after having knocked down Ferguson if this fight goes to the ground. I don't think that's something he can make up in the end.
And then lastly, anything that Justin has on him, you think? Like, that he just can't make up for?
Well, there's always that factor that, hey, we love Tony Ferguson. We celebrate that not only can he walk through hell, he almost prefers to do that. He likes to get a little on him, so to speak, to fire him up. Obviously, this is the wrong guy to test that against.
Right. Yeah, and again, I think the power punching and the heavy, heavy, heavy leg kicking of Justin Gaethje is going to make a difference in the end. We'll have to see. And if we're wrong, by the way, next week, BC, we have to acknowledge it. But again, would it surprise you if Justin Gaethje won? How on earth could it? The guy is capable of doing pretty impressive things.
This life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.